This was the reaction of Move Forward supporters following the party's dissolution by the Constitutional Court. The verdict was a major blow to the Progressive Party that won the most seats in the House in the 2023 general election. On August 7th, the court ruled that the party's attempt to amend the lèse majesté law, formerly known as Section 112 of the country's penal code, through its policy platform and their election campaign amounted to an act to degrade the value of the monarchy. Regardless, Pitha Limjaroenrat still believes that it is still possible for the law to be discussed, but with extreme caution.
Well, I think it's still possible, but there's a line that is being drawn between the legislation and judicial, and I think we should take care of it with consideration and care, but we definitely have to be aware that the problem persists between the relationship between the monarchy and the mass.
Previously, the Move Forward party proposed amendments to Section 112, as they felt that the law is too often used as a political weapon to suppress opposition. As the verdict says, however, the dissolution of the party is a result of its attempts to amend the law, deemed an attempt to overthrow the constitutional monarchy. Kem Tong Tonsakul Rungrung of Chulalongkorn University said this clearly implies that the law cannot be touched at all.
The most problematic part of today's decision is that you cannot amend the law at all. Even if you lawfully campaign in a legitimate election, even so, the court said this is not a due legislative process and need to be punished. So think about it, it's very conflicting because in the past the law has been amended a few times already, but it seems like the court is implying that you can amend to make it more severe, but you cannot make it a lighter sentence, for example.
As to whether the law can still be debated, Associate Professor Dr. Jet Thunawanik believes that it can, but only if it's in a proper parliamentary session, and as long as they discuss the law with reverence and respect for the monarchy. He also feels that the remaining Move Forward MPs will have to be much more careful if they're still going to push the same ideologies.
If it's a proper parliamentary session, or it's a proper parliamentary process, or legitimate parliamentary session, legitimate parliamentary proposal, then that's fine. You can advise the parliament, or you can propose the parliament to amend Section 112 of the Penal Code. But it must be properly done. It must be legitimate, and it must not overturn or overthrow or undermine democracy with the king as head of state. Especially, it must not undermine the relationship between the king and the people.
Meanwhile, Dr. Thitipon Phakdeewanit of Ubon Ratchathani University feels that the court's verdict closed the door on discussion of amendments to the lèse majesté law, which he thinks is detrimental to Thailand's democracy. Despite any reincarnation of the party, he still believes that it will still be a bumpy road ahead.
Sadly, I would agree with this point, because if you look at the future of Move Forward parties, I don't think it would be a smooth trip to democracy for Thailand. But I think they are now learned, and they have learned since the dissolution of the Future Forward Party. So they are fully aware of the situation in the country. But then I think it would be very difficult for them, but then there are still a hope, and I don't think it would be too difficult for them to achieve what they actually want and what the country wants, because they still have a very strong support.
Many international human rights organizations and embassies in Thailand have already commented on the Move Forward Party's dissolution, noting that it disenfranchises over 14 million Thais who voted for the party and that it jeopardizes Thailand's democratic progress. Nad Bunag reporting for Thai PBS World.